Hello all, very good morning folks. Thanks for joining this session. Welcome to Spring Boot Microservices Demo 1. Let me share my screen quickly and let me take a while to introduce myself. My name is Narsi. I have 12 plus years of experience and I'm working as an associate architect now in a product engineering company. And my practice is the cloud and DevOps, security, and microservices architecture. So I have been, there on microservices architecture since 2017 and have been delivered a variety of cloud solution, monolithic to microservices architecture conversions for the digital appliances domain. So the technologies that I teach are the Spring Boot, microservices, and the cloud native microservices with Spring Cloud, Java real-time projects, DevOps, AWS, DevOps with AWS real-time project, microservices architectural patterns, microservices security, and then Docker and Kubernetes. So these are the technologies that I usually teaching. Thank you so much for joining the session. So let's discuss the agenda of the session. So most of you might guess, have been completed your Servlets, JSP, Jdbc sessions, and also might be completed the Spring sessions, right? And looking for learning the Spring Boot because everywhere you are hearing the Spring Boot as a buzzword nowadays. What is the Spring Boot? Why the Spring Boot gain that much of popularity, right? And then why everyone is asking for the Spring Boot, correct? So these may be the questions are maybe a curiosity to know about the Spring Boot, how it is do, and then what it will do, right? So these are all the things. Let us discuss slowly. Okay, so first of all, why we need to learn the Spring Boot and microservices. So okay, let me introduce the course content as well, what course content we're going to cover and all. But before that, why we need to learn the Spring Boot? So why we need to learn the Spring Boot? There were lots of other frameworks, Java frameworks available, right? So why we need to learn the Spring Boot? So reason one is 61% of the market, or we can say company, 61% of the companies are using Spring Boot. Okay, so what's the benefit to us? So that you might have get a good job opportunities, meaning more job opportunities, because more companies are using, right? So they require the more engineers on Spring Boot. So more job opportunities we will get. This is the first reason. So 61% of the market or companies are using the Spring Boot nowadays. So definitely they need the Spring Boot experts. So more Spring Boot experts they need. That means more jobs will be there. Folks, am I audible? Is my voice breaking or am I audible? Can anyone please confirm?
It's audible.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. So reason one why we need to learn Spring Boot is 61% of. Yes. Can you please mute? Let me mute all you folks. Yeah. Thank you. So 61% of the market or companies are using Spring Boot, so that we might have get a more job opportunities because they require the Spring Boot experts. First of all, reason, okay, you might get a question now, sir, why they are looking for a Spring Boot experts? Why the 61% of the market is using Spring Boot? That question I will answer very soon. But the second is what, second reason is what, every company nowadays started using the microservices architecture. Every company nowadays started using the microservices architecture, no matter whether it is a small scale company or a gained company, big company or small company, no matter, but at least they started practicing using this microservices architecture. So there will be a need of, right, readily available, right, readily available configuration driven framework. Of course, my words are little new for you, but just understand, every company nowadays started using the microservices architecture. So there will be a need of readily available configuration driven framework to implement these microservices. So to implement microservices using Java, Spring Boot is the framework. Spring Boot is the framework. Spring Boot is the framework which is providing the configurations automatically, or which is providing the configurations, right? Which is providing the configurations required, readily required, or required, we can say. So maybe whatever I have written or whatever I have typed might be little new for you, but you might now understand two things. You might now understand. Reason one, 61% of the companies in the market are using the Spring Boot, right? That is one thing, so that we will get more job opportunities for sure. And why they are using Spring Boot?
स्क्रीनशॉट तो कहाँ पे रखूंगी वो सारे स्क्रीनशॉट?
Folks, I am removing the participants to unmute themselves option. If you have any questions to ask me, please raise your hand. I will, look into it and then give you the unmute option. However, reason two, every company nowadays started using the microservices architecture. Sir, what are these microservices? How this microservices architecture? Slowly, let us understand these things slowly. But two things you need to now understand. Number one, most of the companies are using Spring Boot as their Java development platform framework. So here we can say most of the companies are using Spring Boot as their Java development, Spring Boot as their Java development platform framework. So this is based on what I am telling, based on a survey conducted by the VMware in 2021. So based on survey conducted by VMware in 2021. Based on survey conducted by VMware in 2021, most of the companies, meaning 61 to 65% of the companies, are using Spring Boot as their Java development framework. Okay, so that means what? More than, it is closely reaching to, in 2022 for sure it will closely reach to 61% to around 68%, or closely it will reach to 70%. That means what? Almost all the companies nowadays are using Spring Boot as their Java development platform framework. So what the advantage we will get? As almost all the companies are started using the Spring Boot, definitely they required the Spring Boot experts, Spring Boot engineers they required. So more number of opportunities we will have on the Spring Boot for sure. That is reason one why you have to learn the Spring Boot. Reason two, the companies are using Spring Boot as their development platform, right? Why they have started using the Spring Boot as their development platform. The reason too is every company nowadays started using the microservices architecture. So to implement the microservices architecture or to develop the microservices architecture, we need a framework. We need a framework which will give the readily available configurations to us. Meaning, if we write the configurations since beginning, then implementation of this architecture might take a longer time. So it required microservices architecture implementation required the readily available configuration driven framework. So such framework in Java we have is the Spring Boot, because here microservices, according to the microservices, according to the microservices principle 2, what are these principles? I'll explain maybe going forward, in microservices sessions I will explain, but microservices principle 2 is saying what, microservices are autonomous. Microservices are autonomous. That means what? Whatever the microservices we are implementing, right? So that microservices, whatever the microservices we are implementing, right? That microservices are autonomous, meaning microservices. Folks, can you please mute? I don't know how you got an option to unmute yourself, though I was disable the option, but okay. So please be mute. Huh? So microservices are autonomous, meaning microservices requires to have their own infrastructure. Infrastructure meaning microservices required to have their own Java runtime engine, their own database, their own Tomcat kind of server, web application server, right? So their own runtime, their own source code. Every microservices have their own source code, runtime engine, database, web server, or application server. That's why we are saying it as an autonomous. So is there any framework which is making or which is giving the autonomous features? Yes, that is the Spring Boot. Maybe you will understand later on time. My words are little tough for you at this moment, but the reality is what, the Spring Boot is using as a mandatory or de facto framework for implementing the microservices architecture, Java-based microservices architecture. So these are the two reasons you have to look into Spring Boot architecture or Spring Boot learning. Okay. What to be learned in Spring Boot, sir? How can I learn the Spring Boot? That's all we will discuss in a moment of time. But before discussing that, let's go and see the CTCs. Of course, if we learn the Spring Boot microservices salary, if we can take, so how much salary they are giving? So if we can go here, an average salary for an entry level engineer and an average salary for an expert engineer or maybe experienced engineer. See this 8 lakhs to around 22 lakhs they are giving. So this is the average salary. Average. If you have a Spring Boot expertise in your profile, you can demand a minimum of this one based on your experience range. So if you can see, the average Spring Boot developer salary in India is 12 lakhs per year or 615 rupees per hour. So entry level position start at 8 lakhs. See this? Way back in 2015 or maybe 2017, before start using the Spring Boot, an entry level engineer salary is not more than 3 lakhs or 4 lakhs. But nowadays, see, an entry level position start at 8 lakhs. That's how the demand of the Spring Boot engineers are there in the market, right? And the experience, based on your experience level, you can make up to 22 lakhs per year. And believe me, folks, the guys who have the experience of just 4.5 years or 5 years or just 6 years or maybe 4 years to 6 years, these guys are getting 20 lakhs to 26 lakhs CTC per annum. Just for 5 years, just for 6 years experience, they are getting the CTC like 20 lakhs to 26 lakhs per annum. If you will have the Spring Boot and microservices as one of your key skill set, that is the constraint. If you have the microservices architecture knowledge and Spring Boot knowledge or experience, I use two words here: Spring Boot knowledge or experienced, and microservices knowledge if you have, or experience also you have. If you have, then you will be getting good opportunities and good salaries. So why we have written these two statements here? Because what is this is forecasting. If you can see, 61% of the market or companies are using Spring Boot. What is this forecasting? So this is the situation now in 2021. Meaning in 2022, 2023, see how the demand for the Spring Boot guys and how the market will hike its job opportunities on Spring Boot. Just imagine, right? Because everyone is now started using this microservices architecture. So definitely the de facto or default or mandatory framework to implement these microservices or the Spring Boot, right? So that's how you have to start learning now Spring Boot and microservices architecture. Okay, so what are the prerequisites to learn this Spring Boot and microservices? So what is the prerequisite? The prerequisite to learn the Spring Boot and microservices is Spring Core. Spring Core is required to learn this Spring Boot. Sir, Spring Core is enough to learn this or start learning the Spring Boot? Yes, Spring Core is good enough to start learning this Spring Boot. And as part of this course, the first 2 weeks to 3 weeks, I will start the Spring Core. The first 2 weeks to 3 weeks, I will start Spring Core. That means if you don't know Spring Core, if you know only the Java, you are welcome to attend the Spring Boot and microservices sessions, because the Spring Core 2 to 3 weeks, I'll explain the Spring Core. So, and for the guys who already know the Spring Core or who already know the Spring framework, you no need to feel like a bore here, because a lot of things we'll discuss in the Spring Core. Internals of the the Spring framework, how it will work, right? Basically, when we are creating a Spring Bean, will it be created in the JVM or will it be temporarily created somewhere, and how the mapping will be happen to the Spring application context or bean factory, a Spring engine to our JVM, how the mapping will be object, how the objects will be created. That level let us discuss in Spring Core. Okay, what I mean to say is the beginners who don't know the Spring Core, you can happily attend, and the guys who have the Spring Core knowledge also can attend, because it will be moreover from scratch to however it will be moreover from scratch to an experienced level training on Spring Boot. Okay, yes, we're going to discuss Spring Cores as part of the current course. The prerequisite part Spring Core we'll discuss for 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, Advanced Java is required. However, I am assuming like you guys have completed the CoreJava and Advanced Java. Prerequisite is you have completed CoreJava and Advanced Java. Advanced Java is compulsory. CoreJava, Advanced Java, and Jdbc, right? CoreJava, Advanced Java, and probably Advanced Java also have the Jdbc, right? So CoreJava and Advanced Java are the mandatory for this course. Okay, and Spring Core, where I will cover here. Okay, now maybe you guys might have already the Spring experience or the knowledge, but you are trying to learn the Spring Boot. You are also welcome, because this Spring Core, majority of the, if you attend any interview question, if you attend any interview on Spring or Spring Boot or Spring framework, if you attend any interviews, right? Any interviews, majority of the questions. So majority of the questions will be asked on Spring Core only. Why? Because if you have a strong fundamentals or if you have a strong concept in Spring Core, the rest of the Spring modules you will easily implement, or you will easily learn, or you will easily understand. So this is the heart. So this is the heart of the entire Spring framework. Spring Core is the heart of the entire Spring framework. So if you have a very good knowledge or experience on the Spring Core, then you will implement any of the underlying Spring framework modules, and you can easily implement and learn the Spring Boot. So Spring Core, any interview you can take. First, they will ask the interview questions on the Spring Core. They'll start evaluating your knowledge on the Spring Core for sure. So Spring Core is very, very important. And folks, to get the job, I'm sure if you have an expertise on Java 8, and if you have an expertise on Spring Core, and if you have an expertise on boot and microservices, meaning expertise in the sense at least a good knowledge. So Spring Core and Spring Boot microservices, Spring Boot microservices, and Docker knowledge. This is good enough to get a very good opportunities. If you know this skill set, if you have this skill set in your resume, you will get at least minimum 5 to 6 calls at least a day you will get, and minimum one interview will be scheduled per 2 days at least. So if you have this skill set in your resume, you will get more calls, job calls, and also minimum one interview scheduled at least 2 to 3 days, or weekly at least 3 interviews for sure will be scheduled for you. So Java 8, Spring Core, Spring Boot, microservices, and Docker knowledge. If you have this skill set, 100% you will get job. Because nowadays market is very, very awesome, very, very good. Market is doing, the IT is doing good with high standard of salaries. IT is very good nowadays with the high salaries, high standard of salaries, right? So if you know Java 8, Spring Core, Spring Boot, microservices, and Docker, you 100% you will get the job. But you have to learn practically. With the practical orientation, you have to learn, not theory. If I'll give you 200 pages of book, if you study it overnight and then come tomorrow, that won't give you the job. You have to practice well. You have to understand well. You have to think well, right? You have to put your hands dirty by practicing the various scenarios or project and all. Okay. However, if you can see in this core skill set, Spring Core, I'm telling here, Spring Boot microservices, I'm telling here, Docker also as part of your Spring Boot microservices session. So what you need to come up with? You only need to come up with your Java 8. You work on making yourself expert on Java 8. I'll work on making you to, the expert on the Spring Boot microservices, Docker, Spring Core. So this part I will take the responsibility. This part you guys can do a hard work. Together you will get a very, very, very good jobs. Let us work together for 90 days, and post 90 days, maybe you see in the market, you definitely will get a very, very good opportunities, very, very good jobs with high standard of salaries. There is no doubt at all. Okay, so this is how the importance of the Spring Boot and the microservices, right? I'm telling for the Java developers and for the experienced guys. For example, the experience is around 0 to 3 years. I'm talking about. So experience 0 to 3 years, these skill set is good enough to have. And if experience is more like experience is, of course we can say experience is 0 to 5 years, this is good enough. And if it is more than 5 years experience, right? So more than 5 years experience, then they will also ask for the deployment strategies, or maybe cloud knowledge. They'll ask the deployment strategies or cloud knowledge or Kubernetes knowledge. They might expect, but till the experience 0 to 5 years, Docker and Spring Boot microservices is good enough, because there will be DevOps team will come after you Dockerize the applications. DevOps team will come and they'll take care about the deployments of your application by writing the Kubernetes files and by targeting to either of the cloud like AWS or any of the cloud. They will automate whatever you have written. They will automate. Okay, so that is the reason for a developer. These are good enough. These are very good enough. Okay, I will show one thing to you. How we have to learn this. I said now Dockerizing, right? So if we can go back to here, just let me go to here, Spring Boot microservices. So there is an application. See this. By looking into this application, what you are understanding, there is a Docker compose, and we also have written the Kubernetes files to deploy it, and it is a Spring Boot application. The Spring Boot application, it's a Spring Boot application and written with the WebMVC capabilities. This application is written with this WebMVC capabilities. Okay, but what you understood here, Spring Boot application, meaning Spring Boot development, you have to know, and Dockerizing you have to know, and Docker Compose how to write you have to know. This is the expectation. A Java developer required to have the experience or knowledge on Spring Boot development, Dockerizing the application, using the Docker file and Docker Compose. Why, sir? Docker file and Docker Compose. Of course, Docker Compose will come as part of your Docker sessions, but writing Docker file is okay, but you also have to be expertise in writing the Docker Compose file. Why, sir? Why you are stressing writing Docker Compose file? Why stressing Docker Compose file is? If you write a Docker Compose file, converting the Docker Compose file into the Kubernetes deployment files is very easy. There is a tool called Compose. Not C. K-O-M-P-O-S-E, Compose. There is a tool called Compose, which will take the input as a Docker Compose file and produce the outputs as a Kubernetes deployment files. That's the reason our DevOps engineers will always ask us, usually, please provide us the Docker Compose files. What they will do, they simply use a command, Docker-compose space convert, and they will give this Docker Compose file. That's it. They will get the Kubernetes deployment files readily available. I think you are getting the expectation, right? So how a Spring Boot developer should be in the market. The Spring Boot developer should be in the market to have the Spring Boot development expertise and also to have the Docker expertise by writing the Docker files and then Docker Compose. Still here, expertise is required. Okay, good, sir. Then how to start? So you shown one coding application and you shown Docker Compose and all. These are very good, but how to start? How this course has been designed, right? So before discussing about what is Spring Boot, what is Spring Framework and all, you need to understand actually the scope of the learning Spring Boot. That is the primary point you have to see. Okay, so step-by-step learning we will do here. So step-by-step learning we will do here. Meaning what? Is step one. If you can see my screen, let me go to here, or else let me go here. Just let me go here. I'll come to your questions, folks. Just give me a moment. Okay. Step one, what we will do? Step one, using Spring Boot, we will develop a web application. Step one, using Spring Boot, we will develop a web application. Sir, everyone is nowadays using the REST applications, right? RESTful web services everyone is using, then why you are making us to develop the web applications? Why? Because web MVC capabilities are required to have, meaning you are joining here with the Spring Core knowledge, or you are joining this batch with the your Java knowledge. I'm assuming that you don't know the Spring Web MVC. So that is the reason I am first starting developing an application with the Spring Web MVC. That is the step one. So step one is what? Developing the step one. So folks, please concentrate. This is very important. How you have to learn, what you have to learn, I will discuss, but how you have to learn. Step one. Step one. So we will start, we will step one, we will develop web MVC application. Step one, we will develop web MVC application. So how that web MVC application looks like? How that web MVC application looks like? So let me open the AWS console. Just this is to showcase something to you. Here, let us take the use case of a retail e-commerce. Retail e-commerce use case, let us take, and let us implement this Shopify, a retail e-commerce platform. And the look and feel is looks like the same exactly what I am showing you. So the look and feel of the application that you're going to develop is exactly the same. Dashboard, categories, products, orders, and customers. This is the look and feel of the dashboard that we're gonna application that we're gonna implement using Spring Boot. So here we will use the Spring Web MVC. If you can see Spring Web MVC and services, entities, repository, right? And then database we have used, right? And database replication we have used here. What is replication and all? Again, I will explain. We will set it up, don't worry. But here you have to concentrate. Using Spring Web MVC and using Spring Boot, we will develop this retail e-commerce application. Okay, this is the step one. So by this step one, what you will learn? By this step one, what you will learn, what the confidence or what the concepts you will learn of what are the Spring Boot concepts you will learn by this step. The concepts you will learn by this step is how to write first of all, what is WebMVC, how the WebMVC will be, what is controller, what is the data binding. When a user enters something here, how the data will be bind to a controller, validations, global exception handling, internationalization, and once after the data is here, you will pass the data to the service layer. In service layer, we'll start the transaction management. So what are transactions? How many ways we can implement the transaction management, and all you will learn here. And after that, using the JPA, we will write the entities. Entities meaning the database specific, right? So database tables we need to create, right? In order to create the database tables, we will write the Java classes here. Those are nothing but the entities. And to map the Java classes to the database tables, we will use a persistent framework. That is what JPA we will use. However, going forward, you're gonna learn. So here entities you will write, how to write the entities, one-to-many association. Here, every step you will get a number of interview questions, folks. For example, in this layer, what the questions you get, how to, meaning, can you please explain me the one-to-many association with an example? Can you please explain me the many-to-many association with an example? Can you please explain how to save the enums into the database, or how to associate or how to map the enums into the database, right? And how to handle the parent and then child categories, right? So these are the questions you will get here. And in the service layer, you will get the interview questions like how you are handling the transactions, what is transaction management, right? So how you have implemented transactions. So related to the transaction management, they will ask here. And here, how you are handling the exceptions, how you are doing the validations, how to handle the global exceptions, right? How you are developing the view pages, What technology you are using to develop the view pages? So these are the questions they will ask. So let us use time leaf for developing the view pages. Let us use time leaf, lightweight. JSP we can use, but JSP is really heavyweight compared to time leaf. Time leaf is very, very lightweight, which will work on top of the HTML. So if it is a Spring framework, the ideal view technology will be the time leaf basically. Okay, so we will use time leaf here to develop this dashboard or develop this application. And then you will learn this Spring, you learn data JPA in this Spring repository layer. So data JPA is, 79% of the market is using data JPA. So that means you have to master in data JPA at this layer while implementing this layer, right? So I think you now got an idea in which layer you will learn what technology, right? So finally, you will implement this entire project. So your end project looks like to be like this. And this implementation, once after completion, you will get the an experience, or you will get the hands-on knowledge or experience on the Spring Web MVC and the transaction management, exception handling, validations, internationalization, data JPA, data JPA, data JPA. So till here you will get the knowledge here, right? Till here you will get the knowledge. So for a while, what knowledge you will get till here? Let me write. Okay, so what knowledge you will get is writing Spring Web MVC, Spring Web MVC controllers. You will get the knowledge, and you will get the knowledge on time leaf, right? Using the time leaf as a view framework, and you will get the knowledge on data mappings and bindings. What is this? I'll explain. Data binding and mapping in the sense, whenever user submits some data here, right? How that data is coming to this our application is what the data bindings and data mappings. And you will learn validations, data validations, right? And then you will learn the internationalization, and you will learn the exception handling, global exception handling. What I mean to say is using AOP, right? Using AOP, we will handle the global exception handling. We'll handle the exceptions globally, which is very, very important interview question. If it is a Spring Boot interview, microservices interview, without the question on exception handling, your interview won't be. So without the exception handling question, your interview won't be. Definitely the question will be asked on exception handling for sure. Without the interview question on exception handling, your interview won't be there for sure. Okay, so that much of importance will have this for this exception handling, right? So what you will learn by this completion of this application is, you will learn the Spring Web MVC, time leaf, data mappings and bindings, data validations, internationalization, exception handling. That means in this layer, controller layer, what you will learn, these are all the things whatever I have typed here. These are the things you will learn in this controller layer. Now then we will go to the service layer. In service layer, you will learn the transaction management, which is very, very important, without understanding this, which is very, very important, because, in microservices, there is one question, how to handle the transaction management, in microservices. I'm talking about how to handle the transaction management in microservices is the famous question. Again, if your profile will have this Spring Boot and microservices, without this question, your interview don't go on. How to handle the transactions in microservices architecture, how the transactions will be handled. Without this question, there will be no interview for sure, if your profile is on Spring Boot and microservices. So in order to answer this how to handle the transaction management in microservices. First, you have to know what is transaction management in Spring. And in Spring Boot, how we can handle the transactions is what first you have to know. So, right, that's the reason in service layer, we will handle the transactions. And then transactions, and then exception conversion, exceptions conversions. Database specific exceptions will be converted to application specific exceptions. So exception conversions will do in the service layer. Of course, I am not writing it because it will be handled as part of this one. So transaction management, we will see in the service layer mostly. And next in the DAO layer, we can say. So I can write something like this. So first we'll implement the controller layer. First we'll implement the controller layer. These are all using Spring Boot 2.x. These are all using Spring Boot 2.x. And this is what the service layer. This is what the service layer. So in service layer, we will handle the transaction management. In the controller layer, our few members will also speak it as a web layer. So in controller layer or web layer, we will learn these things. And in service layer, we will learn the transaction management. And in the DAO layer, so we will learn, and in the DAO layer, we will learn the JPA, Spring Data JPA, Spring Data JPA. 79% of the market is using Spring Data JPA. 79% of the market is using the Spring Data JPA, right? Using the Spring Data JPA. So this we will learn thoroughly. What is Spring Data? What is Spring Data JPA? Right? Thoroughly you will learn. So these are all the concepts you will learn here as part of the first step. We still are there in the first step only. So as part of your first step, you will learn all these things. And also you will learn securing the web applications. Very, very important. Listen what I'm saying. Carefully listen what I'm saying. We have implemented the web application so far, isn't it? So security is very, very important. So securing the web application, Again, 79% of the market is using the Spring security. 79% of the market is using the Spring security for securing their web applications, Spring Boot applications. So here also we will learn the security, web application security. Why I am talking web application security? There is, when we go to microservices, there is API security also. There is REST API security also. So this REST API security will implement using OAuth 2.x, OpenID, and JWT. Whereas the security in web applications, we will use Spring, of course, Spring Security 5.x. And here also we will use Spring Security 5.x only. So Spring Security 5.x we will use here. Spring Security 5.x will use here. And the concepts we'll use is OAuth 2 framework and then OpenID JWT. But here for securing the web application, we will use Spring Security 5.x. The difference is what, this is a stateful application. Sir, you are talking very high level of words, sir. Don't worry. You will understand going forward what I'm talking about. So stateless application. So now the interview question. What is the difference between stateful application, stateless application, and how to handle the security in stateless application? Why I explicitly have written this, this will gives you why we need to go for the, first of all, why I have written this stateless application, right? Since 2014, in 2014, most of the applications were in 2010 to 2014. Most of the applications were implemented on Spring Web MVC. 2010 to 2014, most of the applications were implemented on Spring Web MVC. And 2013 to 2015, jQuery with Spring combination has been used, right? So, okay, maybe I'm expecting that you are understanding. I'm not deviating. You are understanding. I'm expecting. Okay, I'll come to this point maybe later in time. So let me complete this one. So if you can see here, entire this application completion, what you will learn, entire this application completion, what you will learn is, you will learn the Spring Web MVC, time leaf, data mappings and data bindings, data validations, internationalization, exception handling, and in service layer. So in service layer, so here you will learn what? Spring Web MVC, data binding, data transformations, data validations, internationalization, and exception handling you will learn here. And here what you will learn? Transaction management you will learn. And here what you learn? JPA you will learn. And here what you learn? Data JPA you will learn, right? So this is what you will learn in a step 1. So by this step 1, you will implement this Web MVC application. By this step 1, you will implement the Web MVC application. And here we also use a concept called Spring Boot starters and develop this Spring Boot admin dashboard. Why these admin dashboards, sir? Because we have developed the application, right? How much memory this application is taking, how much CPU this is taking, how much RAM taking, right? The performance of the application, if you would like to see, we need a analytics dashboard, right? That analytics dashboard we can prepare using the Spring Boot admin. Spring Boot admin. So this is what you will learn in this step 1. So in step 1, this is what you will learn. So you will get a practical implementation knowledge and you will get a theoretical Spring Boot 2.x content. Both you will get practical knowledge plus Spring Boot 2.x theory. In fact, Spring Boot 2.x theory you are implementing on the practical, or it is not kind of a student management, or maybe it's not kind of a hello world program kind. It is a use case driven application. Later in time what we will do, this application we will drill down to a React.js application when we drill down this architecture to microservices architecture. Okay, I'll come to that point. So this is the step 1. Now what is the step 2? What is the step 2? In step 2, now carefully observe. What is the step 2? In step 2, this is what you will implement, right? So got the difference? So got the difference in step 1 what we have implemented and step 2 what we have implemented, right? If you can clearly observe, categories management, products management, orders management are under a big box. See, this is a box. And if you can see here, there is no box. Category management is separate, product management is separate, order management separate. But order management, product management, category management, not under a single box like here, right? What happened, sir? What happened? Whatever the Spring Boot application we developed here, right? We converted that application to a microservices architecture. So the application, whatever we implemented here, is called as a monolith application. The application, what we implemented here, we call it as a, sorry folks, monolith. Okay, the application, what we implemented here, one moment folks. Sorry guys. The application what you have implemented till now is called as a monolithic application. Sir, you are using again one word, monolith. What is this monolith? Don't panic. Huh? You will get all the knowledge about the monolithic application, microservices architecture and all. What I'm using is here, the application, whatever we have used, we have implemented so far right here, that we will convert it as a single var file, and deploy that single var file in a Tomcat. So using this approach, will have few disadvantages. So those disadvantages will be taken care with the microservices architecture. That is the reason, as you already have learned the Spring Web MVC and all the concepts, and as you already have implemented, what you will do, you will just change this layer to, my bad, in the diagram, I should have to change actually, but you will learn just this layer, Spring Web MVC layer to Spring REST. Okay, you will just change that to Spring REST. For example, if you can see here, yes. So you will just change the controller layer, what you have learned, right? So you will just change it to the Spring REST. RESTL are same, services, transaction management, entities, right? JPA repository you have implemented in step 1, monolithic application development. That is same. That is same. The only change what you will do is you will implement Spring REST in place of the Spring Web MVC. Right? You will start implementing the Spring REST in place of the Spring Web MVC. And one more architectural difference is here entire modules are bundled inside a single WAR file, and then that WAR file you will deploy here. But here, each and every application is separate, right? See this, there is a big box here, and here there is no box, but there is no outer box. Each and every application is independent here. See, here one more difference is what you can observe. Entire application, orders management, products management, categories management, entire application have only the single database. But here, categories management have one database, product management have one database, and orders management have one database. Right? What you observe now? What you observe now? Each and every module that we have implemented here, right? Each and every module, now we migrated to a microservice. Right? Each and every module here, we migrated it as a microservice architecture. So let us discuss more on this microservices architecture, how we migrated in tomorrow demo session, folks. Okay, so in tomorrow demo session, so I will explain how, meaning how we converted it, microservices architecture. And if you can see the UI, so here the UI is different. Of course, the same UI, but here the UI is something like that, meaning the arrow mark you can see, right? And here you can see. So category service might have one kind of a UI, products maybe kind of one UI, and then order maybe kind of another UI. Or there will be one more possibility as well. What is that one more possibility is, this is the diagram. See this? Yeah, see this? This is the diagram. Categories, products, orders will be a single application where it is calling the backend microservices. Okay, this is a little interesting. And after discussing this one tomorrow, let us implement our final architecture. This is our final architecture. What you gonna do in this Spring Boot and microservices sessions in DurgaSoft. Okay, what you gonna finally implement, right? So microservices, till microservices implementation, right? It's not good to go into the market and then attend the interviews. So you required more. I say Docker, where Docker will come. See, Docker came. This is the microservices. Microservices management is important, right? Then we will go for a Spring Cloud, right? When the Spring Cloud will come, then lot of things will come. This entire system is called as an ecosystem. So step 1, monolithic application. Step 2, microservices architecture. Step 3, ecosystem implementation. So this is a 3-step program or the course you will learn in this Spring Boot microservices sessions. So that's all for today, folks. Any questions for me to ask? You can ask the questions now. And tomorrow, let us start understanding the microservices architecture, like how it has been drafted, how we will draft it here to here. And tomorrow I will showcase you the course content. And also today I will submit the course content. You will go and see in the website of DurgaSoft. Okay. Any questions for me? You guys have posted many questions for me. Probably I need to study them one after the other. Yeah, Shankar raised your hand. How many demos you are taking and from when you are starting the actual syllabus? So first of all, we need to get the understanding, right? What we're gonna do in this entire program. That might take that might take maybe three sessions. Today is one session. Tomorrow session, you will understand the monolithic microservices architecture differences and final cloud native application differences. We'll discuss a bit about the Dockerization part tomorrow, meaning overview, idea. I'm just providing you the idea. And then after, let us start the Spring Core. Maybe three sessions will be on the demos. Okay, right. And every day the session will be for 1.5 hours. As now the demos are going, I don't want to make you guys bore, like, because you just have started, right? It will take little time for you to habituate and then digest the thing. So every day it is 1.5 hour session, starts from 7 a.m. and ends by the 8:30. In that 1.5 hour session, 15 days, sorry, in that 1.5 hour session, 15 minutes for the recapping the yesterday things, and 1 hour 15 minutes is for the content discussion, interview questions, discussions, and all. Okay, will we have classes on weekends also? Based on the need and based on the progress that we are making towards to completion of the course content, let us plan for the weekends. Mostly 1 or 2 weekends let's plan, but not more than that. If we go uh, regularly, and sessions are happening regularly, then there is no need of happening. Are you covering Kafka and K8s and deployment as well? Not K8s, but if you can see this diagram, I think if you attend tomorrow's demo, your question will be answered. But as an answer for your question, yes, we are using Kafka in our Spring Boot microservices course. See this? Whatever the diagram I'm showing, this is your end output, folks. This is your end output. This diagram is your end output. You may get doubt, sir, diagram looks like very nice coloring, blurring, but can we really implement this? Yes. Yes, this is what you have to implement throughout this session, folks. And for sure you will implement. It's already implemented. I will show you the working copy of this diagram as well. But not now. Let us discuss about this architecture tomorrow, and then slowly you'll understand the components as well. So as an answer for your question, yes, we are using Kafka. Okay. How long this course? Yes, I'm not taking like in the hours, like 120 hours or something like that, but 3 months is the duration of this course. 90 days is the course duration. So tomorrow I will present you the course content, and with that course content, how it will goes to 90 days, I will explain. Okay. And because you are learning a lot of things, right? Definitely it will take 90 days. Fine. Are you going to teach UI as well as I see inside Angular and React? This diagram, right? Angular and then React. Are you going to teach? No, actually later in time, I will start the Java real-time project. When Java real-time project will start, then there we will do an integration of the UI. But for you guys, Spring Boot microservices and Spring Cloud, there is no Angular, there is no React. Yeah, the UI what we're going to implement in the monolithic application is time leaf. But later in time, I will conduct the Java real-time microservices architecture project implementation, real-time project implementation. There, the Angular and then React will come. Not Angular, React will come basically. I will choose React as my first priority for the microservices architecture because of its lightweightness and then fastness, agility, because of its rigidity and agility, right? We are using this React.js. React.js will be the first choice, at least in my opinion, when it is a microservices architecture. But however, for your question, no, you guys don't be touch this part. Okay, you guys only touch this part, not UI part, only backend part you will touch. Fine. For all sessions, videos will be provided. Yes, for all sessions, video recordings will be provided, and the validity of the video recordings is 6 months, meaning Your batch is for the 90 days, right? 90 days you will have the accessibility, and post your batch again 90 days you have the accessibility. A total of 6 months you will have the course videos accessibility. Okay. And how much experience you can I can show, sir? That's by looking into this architecture, by looking into the content what I have explained so far, right? It's up to you. You can imagine what experience you can put, right? If your experience is manageable, you can put 6 years as well, 5 years as well. If your experience is manageable, because folks, we are building almost all enterprise application, not enterprise monolithic, enterprise microservices architecture we are building. It's up to you, like the documentation wise or maybe other parameters wise, how you will manage your experience, that many years of experience you can showcase, right? Yeah, right. So when the real-time batch will start? So once completed the Spring Boot and microservices, right? So then we will start the real-time project. But most of the folks who are attending my Spring Boot and microservices, for you, no real-time project is required, because we will do the real-time project implementation here. So you guys probably no need to attend the real-time projects. The only difference is in real-time, the end-to-end integrations we will see, right? So backend will implement microservices and front-end will integrate them with the UI technologies, right? Will there be classes on Saturday and Sunday? Not on Saturday and Sunday. Mostly the classes will be on Saturday only. Saturday, not on Sunday. Can you start a parallel batch for K8s and other deployment technologies? Yes. I will plan for it. I'll plan for it. Okay. So yeah. Thank you so much, folks. Yes. Are you covering Spring Security? Yes. That's what I told right here. If you can see here, Spring Security is covering. How would we lift it? See this? Securing the web application using Spring Security 5.x and REST API security using the OAuth 2 and then OpenID JWT. The same I have been mentioned in my course content, and the same you have seen in this architecture. See this in this architecture. What is this meant for? Identity server, right? MFA, JWT, these tokens, right? What is this meant for? That is security, right? API security, right? So whatever I have given here, the same also were mentioned in the banner what DURGASOFT promoted, right? So this banner. So whatever the banner, or this is, you can see in the banner, these all the things we will discuss. Of course, tomorrow I'll discuss more about the course content, folks. Then you will get the clarity. Okay. Yeah. Yes. We hope you covered all the Spring Core concepts. Yes, because I know what are the interviewers will ask, right? I know from the Spring Core what is required to develop a REST applications and a WebMVC applications. For sure, don't compromise here. So we will cover in depth of the Spring Core. There is no compromising here, but it will take 2 to 3 weeks, folks. Okay. Yeah. Any more questions for me? Yeah. Okay. Let us see. Let us connect again. How many projects all together in these sessions? So one project on monolithic, the same we will convert into microservice, and the same we will Dockerize. So this is little hypothetical question, I believe. Hypothetical question meaning what? How many projects you will cover? This is a very good question. So one project we will implement using the right, using the Spring Boot and Thime Leaf. And later on, this project will be divided or converted into microservices. When it comes to microservices, categories, products, orders, customers, this is one project again. I mean, categories is one application, products is another application. Like that, each and every one will become as one separate application. Okay. So entire this course, we will implement the e-commerce, retail e-commerce is the application we will implement. Not all the features, but the features what I have listed here, we will implement. Okay. Yep. Okay, folks. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. Thanks for attending the demo. Hope let us connect even tomorrow as well and discuss more about the microservices architecture and monolithic to microservices migration overview idea, just to have idea. Let us discuss tomorrow. Thank you so much.